Can you hear me now? Goodness gracious. Okay, you guys can hear me. All right, let me make you a co-host, Michael. Woo-wee. My foray into this invite to co-host, send co-host. Okay, so Dr. Darity sent me a message. Um, can you send him the invite again? Let me see what he said in his message. Lord. Okay, Evan. So it's a 7. Yes, we are.
All right, I am somebody. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, thank you. All right, so I'm getting text messages from authors, so I'm responding. Give me 1 second. Okay, all right. I know she tried to do. Okay, so I thought Dr. Nerity sent me a message, but maybe he tried to call me. Let me.
He's
There he is.
he's he's
He's
in the
here.
space now.
Yay! Okay. Y'all, this is just my second voyage with Twitter Spaces, so please forgive me. I was trying to figure out how to get the music back on. Mansoor, I figured out what it was. I didn't turn my mic on. So, duh. Don't say this. Okay. Okay.
You are doing just fine,
All
darling.
right. So, let me. I had Cece, I had you as a speaker because I couldn't hear anybody and I'm familiar with you, so I didn't want to put any weird people up here. But I'm gonna have to drop you down because I don't think we got enough room because it limits you to 10. Okay, thank you, but stay here. Okay, so well, co-host, Actify Press, can you put speakers up and down, you and Mansoor?
Yes, ma'am. I got it under
So
control.
okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And welcome everyone to our Black History Month event. I'm so excited everyone's here. And I have as my co-host Michael Graham of Actify Press and Mansoor Buffin as the other head co-hosts. And I just want to start off by saying a special thank you because I saw one of my colleagues, Dr. Let's see, Arturo Chavez. He is the coordinator of Black History Month at my university. And so he's in here, and I just wanted to say thank you for all the help he gave me in trying to get this as part of our university's Black History Month program. Um, my university is the University of Carnegie, where we're in San Antonio, Texas. And I also want to thank ASALA, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, which is the founding organization by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who founded Black History Month. He started off as Negro History Week, but expanded into Black History Month. And so they gave us promotional support for this event, as well as the American Association for Adult and Continuing Education. So I had a lot of folks helping me get this together. And I just want to say thank you to all of you all. And at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to my co-host and let them go ahead and get the discussion started. Is that okay with you guys? Mansoor and Michael, I'm going to go on mute.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Although, Lisa, I did want you to, if you could, just say a bit about the book, and then me and Michael can take it away.
Well, actually, we did a recording. And if you go through my timeline, you will see that did an interview with the editors. And so we kind of extensively covered that portion about the book. So I'm just fine if we just jump right in with the introductions that you had planned with all the authors, and then go from there. Because I've really covered all of that in the video about the book.
Thank you. And yes, for those listening, there is a video promotion about the book, as well as a previous recording when we talked about Chapter 9, From Here to Equality, with all the authors. So for those who are listening, if you haven't listened to those, I encourage you to listen to those also. My name is Mansoor. I am a school teacher in New England, and I'm excited to engage in conversation and dialogue about reparations, specifically about part one of the Black Reparations Project. In a few moments, the authors are going to introduce themselves as well as their scholarly contributions, in a few brief words, their own scholarly contributions to the book. And I'm going to pass it over to Actify Press to introduce.
Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be here. I just wanted to first of all clarify that Mansour does most of the work around here. I'm just a pretty face. So just so everyone knows that when we go through these discussions, when we go through the authors and they discuss their things, let's try to stay on target and discuss the things specifically that we're talking about. And that's all I got. I'm handing it back to Mansour. Thank you.
So yes, we have wonderful authors with us. Some of them, for those authors that are listening, please accept the invitations to speak, because I think it will be helpful to begin the conversation with just an introduction of yourself, a brief introduction of yourself, as well as your scholarly contribution to the book in a few words, so that when you, and of course we're going to get deeper into the content of the writings, but just to introduce yourself for the people who are listening, and take it away as you feel free, whichever author would like to go first.
Can
I'm
everyone?
sorry.
Sorry.
Let me add a little bit more order about this because I was running around trying to call people. So we had divided the book up into the two sections. The first section is the context and case for reparations. So we're going to ask those authors to go first. And that starts with Dr. Darity and A. Kirsten Mullen. And they're going to talk about chapter 1, where does Black reparations in America stand? And then we're going to go to chapter 2, where we have Dr. Thomas Kramer, uh, Brianna Harrison, Dr. Trayvon Logan, Dr. Bellamy, Wesley Bellamy, and then again Dr. Dearty. And these are the economic folks. So they're going to talk about the wealth implications of slavery and racial discrimination for African American descendants of the enslaved. Then we'll go to chapter 3, where we have Dr. Walter D. Grayson, and he's going to talk about unequal housing and the case for reparations, which is a very timely topic at this time as people are struggling with housing. And then Dr. Malik Edwards had another appointment, so he'll probably be in our second half. And he is going to talk about educational inequalities and the case for reparations. Now, Dr. Edwards is a professor at North Carolina Central University School of Law, and he teaches constitutional law, property, administrative law, and education law. So he won't be here to talk about his chapter, this part, but he'll be here for the second part. Then on chapter 5, we're going to have Dr. Keisha Bentley Edwards, and she is going to talk about African American health burdens and disproportionate and unresolved burdens in those areas. And then we'll convene again on February 26th for part 2, which will involve me and other authors, where that section is called The Path to Reparations and Related Considerations. I hope that was helpful, Mansour.
Yes.
So is Dr. Derry still? We can start with Dr. Derry. And Dr. Derry, I did send a text to Miss Mullen, so she did not respond. So hopefully she'll be in here soon. Uh-oh, did we lose Dr. Derry? Okay.
No, he's present.
Michael, can you jump in with some tech help? Oh, there he is. Okay. So Dr. Derry, all you need to do is unmute.
Please click your mic on the left.
I can unmute you, Doc, if you want me to, or can I? Oh, I guess I can't.
Let's see. Can I do it?
Oh, no, no.
Okay, here's Dr. Derry. Remove. Okay, no. Invite co-host. Okay, he should be able to unmute. Maybe he had the same situation I did and didn't have the microphone turned on. I'm not sure.
Yes,
He
but
may.
in the meantime, if authors want to just briefly introduce themselves and their scholarly contributions, and then in the order that Dr. Brown had described, Michael and I will be asking more pointed questions about the content and are excited to hear more extended responses about the content of your chapters. But if we wanted to start with some brief introductions, and I know Brianna, you were going to introduce yourself. If you want to start as Dr. Darity's getting his mic in order.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm Brianna Harrison, PhD candidate at University of Memphis. I mostly write on prison labor after the Civil War, and I contributed to the book in the chapter that was on wealth implications. More so about the historical arc of the targeted disadvantages that African Americans face after the Civil War, particularly in land and the destruction of property in terms of schools, churches, and other things like that.
Thank you for your introduction. Any other authors who have speaking capabilities can jump in.
All right, then I might jump in. My name is Thomas Kramer. I'm an associate professor at the University of Connecticut, and I worked on chapter 2, basically in the part where we estimate reparations for slavery, for lost wages and lost freedom. The tedious tables and formulae that we used, I can say more about them later, but yeah, that was what I was working on in chapter 2.
Thank you, Dr. Kramer. Dr. Logan, perhaps?
Yes, I'm Teron Logan, professor of economics at The Ohio State University, and I worked on chapter 2 with Thomas and other co-authors talking about the size of reparations payment or transfer to the descendants of American enslavement.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Walter Grayson. I'm a endowed professor named for DeWitt Wallace at Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota. My chapter on unequal housing builds on 20 years of research about failed efforts to gain equity in the housing market for African Americans. I have a number of resources that I've just shared on my Twitter page that build off of this work and supplement what appears in the chapter.
Thank you, authors. And as we work on getting speaking capabilities and things together, I just want to start with, as originally we were going to start with Dr. Darity, but Dr. Darity, when you are able to speak, feel free to jump in. But we can start with chapter 2 since many of the chapter 2 authors are able to speak at the moment. In this chapter, y'all were writing about really the question of how much money. You know, when we think about reparations, I think that is a question that a lot of people have: how much money? And in the chapter, y'all go through sort of land-based estimations, thinking about 40 acres and a mule and what that means today. Price-based estimations, thinking about the prices that people were paying for enslaved people and enslaved labor, as well as wage-based estimations, and then just the value of freedom lost. So my question is, if y'all can just share your scholarship in regards to how much and why.
I think people are having trouble unmuting. I just sent another request to Dr. Darity to speak, but I don't know what's going on.
I sent them a request as well.
Okay.
All right. So I guess we'll start with Dr. Grayson, or Mr. Grayson. I'm sorry. And let's start with you since that's how it is on my
Sorry, Dr. Grayson is chapter 3. He does the
Oh,
unequal
I'm sorry.
housing. So
I don't have it in front
probably
of
Dr. Logan,
me. Okay.
and if Bree is still here, she could jump in on that section too.
All right, Dr. Logan, it's on you.
I would turn it over first to Thomas because he's really been the driving force, and I think Thomas, it might be good to lay out sort of the different ways that people can think about reparations payments. and then for each one to think about the calculations underneath those, because there are a couple of different methodologies that really are in Thomas's specialization.
I'm sending him another speaker invite because he's down in listener. Oh, Malik's here. Okay. Let me see if I can get Dr. Kramer because we're limited to 10 people, right? You
Yes.
co you co-host. I need y'all to help me a little bit more with this technology because okay,
We
this is Dr. Bentley Edwards. Okay, so they're both here. So
yeah,
I'm
we're
gonna
trying to we're sending invites. I don't know
okay.
what's going on.
All right.
I can switch to listener if that'll help bring some other
No, we
people
got
on.
plenty of spots. It's just people aren't accepting them. Okay, so here's invite to speak. So that's Dr. Dearty. And as we are waiting for them to come up, I also wanted to highlight some other people who've been a part of this project. I see Native Son is in here. And Native Son has been tremendously inspirational. We actually started the reparations quick guides from here to equality. And he encouraged me to reach out to Dr. Deary. That's actually how I got to know him and Miss Mullen. And so through his prodding and helping with establishing those quick guides, it ended up snowballing to where we are now with the book. So I just wanted to give him a shout out for all the work that he's done with this reparations education that we've been doing.
That brother is so brilliant. I
He,
enjoy I enjoy interacting with him on Twitter. So who do we have?
yeah, we
Did Dr. Kramer come up?
So,
I sent an
Dr.
invite.
Brown, if it's okay with
Go ahead,
yeah.
Mansour. Dr. Kramer may be busy. Maybe we just go ahead and start with Dr. Logan if he doesn't mind.
He just said that he wanted to pass to Dr. Kramer.
I know, but Dr. is
Oh,
not
I
coming
can
up.
start with the first one while we work to get
Okay.
Thomas online, because this really is um, this is a big part of what he was doing. But we can think about the reparations payments in a couple of different ways, right? So the first question would be sort of how much is owed, and I think one of the questions that people would have is what are the reparations payments designed to address? If we cover and sort of stop at the moment of emancipation and think about the reparations being given to the descendants of people who were enslaved in the United States at the time of the emancipation, then it is a reparations payment for the injuries due to enslavement itself. And there are a couple of different ways of trying to calculate that. One way is thinking about the value of time for all of the people who were enslaved up until 1865, and that would be a function of their age and the market value of a wage. But remember, it wouldn't just be a wage that you would earn for, say, a day's work, 8 hours. It would be the entirety of a day, right? Because you're enslaved 24 hours a day. And so that sort of a calculation you can think of as a time calculation, have a set value that is established, say, in 1865, invested in an interest rate of, say, 6% a year up until a transfer, say, in the year 2024. And that is one way of valuing a reparations payment. Another way of thinking about a reparations payment is to think about the policies that people enacted or discussed around the time of emancipation. So, probably the most famous is 40 Acres and a Mule, which had been discussed at the time of emancipation as a reparative measure, giving a wealth transfer essentially to the descendants, or at that time, people who had actually been formerly enslaved. There was justification for such a measure because there's an extensive history in the United States of having such large transfers of wealth to American citizens. And this would simply be an extension of that sort of program to the descendants of enslavement. My best calculations in a recent work with Richard Hornbeck of the University of Chicago is that a reparations payment of that type, say you were to give every enslaved family 40 acres and a mule, valued at 1870 prices, and what that payment would mean today, it would actually be larger than the total sum needed to bring about racial wealth equality at the median. So when people say, well, I would like to return to 40 acres and a mule, it's actually larger than many of the estimates that people have for reparations payment that is designed to eliminate racial wealth inequality. And so that brings me to sort of the third measure of thinking about racial wealth inequality, which would be if we think about the racial wealth gap as the net present effects of enslavement, segregation, political and economic disenfranchisement up until the present, then you could think about eliminating the racial wealth gap at the mean as one way of having and bringing about reparations. And so that's a tangible value that can be calculated from it. I don't have the estimates on the top of my head, which is why I'm hoping Thomas will come back online soon with the actual estimates. But those are sort of three ways of thinking about how a reparations and the size of a reparations payment. And it really depends on one's perspective about what they think the reparations should be for and what time period it corresponds to and what it should actually be as a reparative measure to address enslavement or a period after enslavement and continued racial oppression.
Could we, Dr. Logan, could we think of those things as additive as opposed to one or the other, both and, so to speak?
Well, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but if you're thinking about a
Hmm.
payment for enslavement and segregation and political disenfranchisement, then you're encompassing the enslavement part that I was talking about, right? If
Yes,
you're thinking about a modern analogy to the historical transfer that was discussed but never enacted, then that's different. But remember, they were enacting that transfer, thinking about it as a reparative payment, a reparative measure for the injury of enslavement. So I don't think you'd want to think about all of those as additive together. In other words, we're going to eliminate the contemporary wealth gap, and we're going to have a transfer that reflects the total value of enslavement because one of those is doing that work and a little bit more, and the other is, and they're sort of subsumed into each other. And I think that's why walking carefully through what those payments are and how they're thought of should be really careful.
understood, understood.